All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the end of day 2 for Build. Hope you're having a wonderful build so far. Super excited to get a chance to talk to all of you about the amazing investments we've been making inside of Dataverse and how that's going to really become a core building block for you and how you can go build enterprise agents that are going to solve and change the way you work. And so we're really living in an amazingly interesting time right now, because AI is really fundamentally changing not just how work gets done, but also how we build. As a 20-plus year engineer at Microsoft that's really focused on knowledge work and how to modernize that from the days of VBA and macro recording, all the way through to Dynamics and turning that into a SaaS service, all the way through to modernizing application development with the Power Platform. This has been my bread and butter for my entire career at Microsoft. And AI is unlike any of the opportunities we've had before, because it is fundamentally changing and empowering every developer here with a new tool that is unlike anything we've seen. It's putting the collective intelligence capabilities of these models into your arsenal so that you can really fundamentally reimagine and rethink how every piece of work across your organization gets done. How amazing is it to be a developer at this time, in this day and age, to have that to be part of what you're going to go do for your organizations? And so when we think about what this looks like and how it's transforming work across each and every organization, it really comes down to 3 core components. First is still that human ambition, right? This idea that humans are going to be at the center of how work gets done. But they're now going to be supported with a personal copilot, something that understands their job, their role, their function, and how to make them more efficient and productive than ever before. But that copilot's also going to be supported with this web of agents, these expert systems that understand business processes and how work gets done across your organization, really fundamentally transforming every single business process that you've been running across your organization for years. Right? That's going to be the new day and age of work and how productivity is really going to be delivered for knowledge work moving forward. And with that comes a new development stack, right? The application and platform stack that all of you use to build and support your organizations through that transformation, through that journey, really gets redefined. And when we think about what this manifests as, it really comes down to 3 core transitions and transformations that are happening within the platform. The first is we're shifting from applications as the experiences that people interact with to this idea that Copilot is the UI. It's there to support you and guide you. Understanding, again, your domain, your work, how you operate, and guiding you through that process, making you more efficient and productive than ever before. The second transformation that's really happening is this idea of static workflows are transitioning to agents. Something that can reason in real time based on the context of what's happening to understand what it should go do next to ultimately achieve that business outcome that you're trying to achieve. And the last, my personal favorite, is really what happens with data. Right? Data transitions from just being a static set of information that humans interact with to knowledge. Knowledge that we can infuse into these AI tools to help them reason over what is relevant to your organization and your business. Right? That's the journey we've been on with Dataverse. And this is really what we're starting to see play out across customers and how they're using the platform. One of the stories I love walking through is with a partner that we've got, Valrata, who really took us on that journey, using Dataverse as this common backbone for a web of agents that are running an end-to-end business process to really transform a business process of how they manage and staff shifts across an organization. Think about what that process looks like. You've got the staff and the available capacity that they've got, the shifts that they're going to run. You've got the shift managers, making sure every single shift is fully covered with someone that can operate through that moment. But then, of course, you've got exceptions to the process. You've got vacations and people on sick leave. And so that's what Valrata has actually implemented with multiple agents built on a common backbone that is Dataverse. And through that infrastructure, they've been able to set up an agent that listens to incoming notifications for people being out sick, causing a gap in shift scheduling, shift staffing. And what that does is kicks off another agent to then go look at who's available to go fill that shift through the resources that they've got stored inside of Dataverse, and automatically sends an approval to a manager to say, here are the people that are available to staff that shift. Do you want to allow for that? That's, again, all built on this common backbone using Dataverse because of the transformations we've made from making Dataverse just not about data, but transitioning to really supporting knowledge as a core capability. And so this, of course, all starts with Copilot Studio. That's where you go build and define what those business processes are going to look like to create those agents for your organization. But underpinning Copilot Studio is Dataverse, that common backbone that you can utilize for all of your agents. There to support you, not just as an operational data store, but how you can fundamentally transform all of that data into knowledge so that these agents can leverage the AI to reason over it and decide how best to move the business process forward. It's set up to have the notifications and triggers and that context sharing necessary to build that web of agents across your organization. And last but not least, because we want to transform every single business process across every enterprise in the world using agents, we know we have to make it scale and be secure so that you can trust that your agents can run your most mission-critical workloads day in, day out, the way you need. And so that's really the journey we've been on. And so I'd love to welcome up James Olnick, who's going to walk us through some of the capabilities that we've introduced into the product to bring this to reality so you can see it in action. So James, over to you.
Thank you, Nero. Don't worry, he'll be back. So you've heard a lot about MCP. MCP is the new HTTP. And I really like this slide because it helps visualize how MCP is pervasive across the industry today. MCP is being adopted across many different clients and servers, and I want you to take away one thing from hopefully what I show, and I promise to demo more than I talk today over slides, is that MCP breaks down barriers for your enterprise systems and your business processes. And if you choose to build on Dataverse behind the scenes, which is part of that platform that powers Copilot Studio, you will have so much optionality in terms of all the different integrations you can enable and integrate across all of the growing ecosystem of AI applications. And so the one announcement, if you take a picture of one slide, well, that's not true. I have some links later in this. It is the fact that we are announcing as of today the public preview of the Dataverse MCP server. And I'm going to talk through in an end-to-end demo, actually in 3 different parts today, using this server to be that backbone for your teams of business agents. And we're going to see how it helps you solve the common data problems that your agents have. It helps solve knowledge indexing for all that context that they need. And it also powers powerful AI actions to take action as a part of the end-to-end problems that they're solving. And so let's dive in. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about today is around Dataverse comes with built-in Dataverse search. So any data that you put into Dataverse is immediately indexed for knowledge. And this is what is built into Copilot Studio and powers that powerful knowledge options that you see when you're building your enterprise agents today. And instead of talking about it, let's dive right in. Right. You can see my screen, right? All right. Cool. You can't? You cannot see my screen. You can see my demo slide. How about now? All right, cool. So let's start in VS Code and GitHub Copilot. And what I've done here is I've enabled the new Dataverse MCP server within VS Code. And you can see here how, actually I really love how in GitHub Copilot you can just say, hey, what are the tools that you have? And you can see here that GitHub Copilot comes with a bunch of out-of-box tools. File system, operations has all the context to explore the files that I have within this workspace. But I've also added the Dataverse MCP server here. And what you see here is it's enabled a bunch of different database operations, knowledge operations, and AI actions that are a part of this. And what I'm going to do in this example here is today we're going to build an end-to-end solution around processing kind of an HR process. So I have a company, Contoso. I need to hire people for this. And today am tracking a bunch of the applications that people come in as a part of a CSV file. That's what you see over here. And I also have their resumes in a SharePoint site. And then we're going to walk through kind of this end-to-end process of how it can be reimagined with Dataverse and Copilot Studio. And the first thing that I did here is I said, OK, I just want you to, I don't want to use CSV to store this information anymore. I want it to be stored in the cloud. And I want to use the remote Dataverse MCP server in order to do it. And what is really awesome about GitHub Copilot that I like is it gives you optionality with the models that you have. So I can use Claude, I can use GPT, I can use the latest and greatest models that are available to me to kind of leverage the orchestration here. And let's see here. And so when it triggers this prompt, it's new based off of my prompt here that I want to store this information. And what it did was it looked at the structure of my CSV file. So this is basically the structure of the data that it needs to store. And it translated that into creating what we call a table in Dataverse. And so if you're not familiar with Dataverse, this provides essentially a structured way of storing information in the cloud. And it ended up creating the job applications table in Dataverse. So it got that confirmation. And now it's going to create the records as well. So there's also a tool on this to create records associated with a given table. And so this is really, really powerful. So I think you saw, for example, Ryan Cunningham in the keynote demo earlier today use the plan designer to kind of build kind of his end-to-end data state. Well, you also have optionality to kind of create your structure of your Dataverse environment using the Dataverse MCP server as well. You don't have to go into our user experience. You can kind of do it directly within your project in VS Code. And what this is doing is it's not only creating the structure of the table, but it's uploading each of these records. So if I go into, and while this is working, if I go into Copilot Studio, and I'm going to open that same environment. So this is the same cloud environment that I have that I was using to create this table within. I have the beginning of an agent here. And what I've done here is I've connected this to the resume information. So this is the SharePoint site I use to track all the resumes. By the way, I use GitHub Copilot to create all of these. It's very, very awesome. But what I'm going to do is I have all the resume information, but I don't have all the application submission information. And so I'm going to go into the knowledge experience of Copilot Studio. I'm going to go into Dataverse. And oh, look, there's that job application table that we just created. As you can see here, it's progressively creating. So it hasn't created all of them yet. It's still working on it. So eventually it'll create 20 records. And what I can do here is I can just go and add this to the knowledge base of my agent. And this is going to add it as a part of that knowledge model, that knowledge graph that powers my agent here. And this is just kind of an agent to kind of understand the applications that are coming in. And so now I can ask some very powerful things as a part of this. So I can not only say, OK, let's see if it got all the records correct. So I can ask, this isn't going to be a very HR scenario, but let's just confirm that all the records have been added. And so if you're not familiar with Copilot Studio, when you add a data source to kind of the common knowledge graph of an agent, whenever I ask a question, it has kind of a built-in knowledge search tool to kind of pull information from that. So I can ask it, OK, how many records have been added there? So all the 20 have been completed in that table that I just added. But I want to ask a different question. I want to say, OK, I have all those resumes that are associated with all those applications. They're stored in SharePoint. And I've added that SharePoint site to kind of the Dataverse knowledge graph here. And so I'm able to also ask questions around, for example, how many of those applications, so based off of all those resumes that are in SharePoint, have C# experience. And so because I've added this to the knowledge graph of Dataverse, it will go and it actually goes and builds embeddings for all of the content within these PDF files, such that when I ask this question, it's going to actually pull that answer from all that indexing that we've done behind the scenes, where I, as a developer here, have just had to point to that SharePoint location. And so I see that, okay, Aubrey Powell, which was one of the applications, she has kind of C# as a part of that. You get this awesome citation here. You see that the skills are a part of that, so it did the appropriate match. And what I find is really, really powerful here is I'm showing the power of both unstructured data, so all that resume information that was indexed, but also the structured information of all the application records that I uploaded into the using the Dataverse MCP server. So now I'm able to say that I have multiple different pieces of information all related to job applications, all indexed within Dataverse. And now that I see that she, in fact, submitted it on May 19th. And you saw that I was able to upload it. It was indexed as knowledge. I was able to build an agent that kind of combined structured and unstructured data all in the matter of minutes. Let's go back to the slides for a second. You can please confirm you can see the slides. And all right, cool. So this is really part of that transformation from your business data turned into context for any agent you build in Copilot Studio. Dataverse is part of what is powering that. And it's not just business data. It can be external data in terms of your external system of records. We have a rich set of connectors that can connect to your data where it is today. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It can connect to all of the rich productivity data you have across the Microsoft Graph, and even analytical data and BI data that you have in systems like Databricks, Snowflake, and even Microsoft Fabric. And part of what I'm really excited about is what we're doing with what we're calling the Common Knowledge Graph within Copilot Studio, powered by Dataverse. And what I'm really excited to announce this week is a new set of knowledge providers as a part of this experience, and the GA of some of the existing capabilities that we have. So the first announcement is we now support full embeddings for what we're calling our Tier 1 knowledge providers. So what you saw me do with SharePoint and OneDrive and Dataverse, that is us building embeddings over not just the schema of the data, but also all of the content there within. And we're also announcing the GA of Salesforce Confluence and Dynamics 365, where we're providing that Tier 1 support of indexing the data and the metadata. And then this is something I'm going to show where I'm also excited to announce the ability for us to do federated RAG against other enterprise systems of record. So SharePoint lists, SQL, ServiceNow, Snowflake, and Databricks. These are cases where we're not indexing the actual data. In many cases, there's too much data to index. But we're indexing the metadata and supporting a federated RAG against these knowledge sources. And some of these have been in preview, like Azure, ServiceNow, and Zendesk, and those are now in general availability within Copilot Studio. And then, of course, there are many others. I think you've also seen the ability to connect to an Azure AI search index or other connectors where we're not actually doing kind of more embedding support, but we actually support just connecting to it from a query base. And this is really part of solving all the different types of RAG techniques for you, so you can spend less time building indexes and data integration and more time building your agents. And the next demo that I'm going to show, and I guess I have to cancel out of it so it shows, is I'm going to show a little bit of that common knowledge graph in action. So I've built on my solution a little bit. So instead of just applications, I actually have a couple different tables within Dataverse now. I have a candidate table, I have some interviewers, I have some job postings, and I also have some performance around some of the regions that I have for my team. And I also have this instance of Databricks, where I'm using, and my company is using, to track the headcount associated with our company over time. And these are all powerful tools. If you do any type of quarterly forecasting of hiring, well, you need to understand the resources you have to interview, the applications out there. You have to understand your current headcount, your sales, to kind of appropriately track a process. And what I've done is I've added all these to Dataverse. I've actually added Databricks as a knowledge source as well. And I'm going to show you another application of the Dataverse MCP server in that it is, in lieu of basically by being an MCP server, it is client agnostic. So what I've done here in Claude is I've connected that same MCP server to my Claude environment here. And because Claude has that remote MCP support here, I'm able to start a new chat and show the Dataverse MCP server here. So this is the same MCP server. I'm able to ask a question such as, hey, which of my regions exceeded sales performance in Q1? And Claude, if you played around with using this, it's actually really, really powerful in terms of its tool calling and planning capabilities. And all I've done is I've pointed it to that same Dataverse environment where I have all of those Dataverse tables, and I have that Databricks knowledge source. And it smartly figures out, using the tools that we provided on the server, that I do in fact have sales performance as a Dataverse table and its index as knowledge. And what it does is it uses the tools that we have provided on the server to iteratively evaluate that data. So basically all we've done is expose a tool that accepts SQL based on the schema and underlying structure of the data. And the client basically uses that SQL syntax, which these models are very good at writing, to explore the data. And you can see here how these models, like the paradigm of interacting with client and server is shifting with AI. It's not just a very thin client, very thick server. The clients are thicker with these models. And you have this interactive back and forth where it's essentially iteratively querying the data, slicing and dicing it, and determining rightfully that across the different regions here, my West region was the one that exceeded target, actually by 20%. Target was 10 million, and I had a 2 million target. This is a query against that Databricks data behind the scenes, using the Dataverse MCP server as the intermediary. And then I'm going to ask a question here, which is, this question actually went against Dataverse, not Databricks. Then I'm going to ask a question around headcount. So that headcount data was the one that was in Databricks. And in this case, it's not actually stored as a table natively in Dataverse, but it's actually a knowledge source. And this shows that federated knowledge source. So Databricks is that tier 2 support. So we've indexed all the metadata associated with Databricks. And now we support the ability for you to query it. And so exposing that to a client like Claude now gives it the ability to, okay, like now I'm going to ask queries like, hey, that workforce tracker headcount, I want to understand and query it by different data. I want to by different regions, by different departments. And it's able to kind of iteratively explore all of the data that I basically indexed as a part of my Dataverse environment in order to answer the question that I posed to it up front. And I love like seeing these things at work, when you see the chain of thought where sometimes, it hasn't happened yet, but I'll knock on wood. Sometimes it even gets a query wrong, gets an error, and then it is able to recursively figure out, based off the tools that can describe the schema or list different options, different ways of querying the information. And so based on the information, like another great thing that these AI apps do is they have all the context of everything that you've explored so far. So it didn't just pull all the headcount, but it also summarized it with my sales performance as well. So I have 270 employees, so even though I'm exceeding my sales there, but it's also 87% of my workforce. And one of the boldest things to do in a demo is to kind of ask AI what it thinks. And so I'm going to take, I'm going to take a leap of faith and I say, it understands my headcount. I've exceeded performance. It has all the context of all the information within Dataverse. So what do you think? What do you think, Claude? What should I do? And in this case, it's actually going to go and try to collect additional information around this. So I'm essentially asking, like, what do you think from a forecasting perspective? Should I expand my headcount there? The punchline here is it should say that I should have the space based off of our revenue to create some additional postings. And so we'll actually go and close that later on. But what I think, again, is really interesting is it's able to, I didn't actually prompt this, but based on the context, it's knowing that because I exceeded sales in the West region, it's actually going and targeting its recommendation and breaking it down by region and then coming up with and synthesizing all that information to come up with a recommendation. This is a lot of talking to let the AI do its work. So at the end of all of this, it should come up with a recommendation let's see how it's 2, to create some new postings. So it synthesized all of that. So it pulled all that sales performance. It pulled some different additional context across those tables. And, oh, it actually, yep, 5 to 10% increase. This is actually a little bit bigger than I had earlier. And it's not just about retrieval, right? So it didn't just say, okay, I want to go expand, so I want to go higher, more in this space. So let's say I want to create, well, I guess it said 5 earlier, but I'm going to say 13. So because this Dataverse environment also exposes the ability to create and trigger actions, I can ask it to go and create those postings that kick off a business process, right? And so that's part of the power of Dataverse and part of the power that it brings to Copilot Studio and is also client agnostic, which is it can also create records that trigger autonomous agents and business processes back within your system. And in this case, it goes and creates those postings within that West region that I needed, and I can then go and trigger other business processes behind the scenes. So client agnostic, data, knowledge, and action all in one, right? And it's not, you're not just locked into one client. Okay. Do you see my screens now? My slides now? I don't know why it's taking so long. All right. All right. So Databricks is one of these partners that we've been working with to build connectors in our ecosystem that can participate as knowledge within Copilot Studio. And the amazing thing is they're not the only one. We have a ton of different partners and developers that are building connectivity to their ecosystems, to their systems, to allow our systems and allow Copilot Studio and the Power Platform and Dataverse to have that interoperability. And the thing that I'm really excited today to announce, right after the Dataverse MCP server, is the announcement of the new developer SDK for our connectors. And we have over 1,500 Power Platform connectors today. And with this new SDK, it provides a bunch of tools around how you can build a next level of an enhanced connector. And there's a bunch of tools around validating and testing that connector. And if you upgrade your connector, if you have one today, or you build a new one, these connectors can participate as knowledge within Copilot Studio. And they can participate and be enabled as a part of our MCP ecosystem that we're building. And you can do this both from a custom connector perspective, if you're familiar of this today, or you can certify that connector so that it shows up as part of that those 1,500 certified connectors. And it's a great way of kind of showing up within those tiered knowledge sources. You can connect your own ecosystem or even just your own systems of record today. And so this is really, really awesome way of building connectors. I'm not going to show building it today, but check it out. And if you're interested, create a custom connector and try to connect it into Copilot Studio using Dataverse and try it out today. The next part that I want to show, and then I'm going to lead into the last part of my demo, is that when we look at the spectrum of agents that you can build and also build in Copilot Studio, it's not just about agents that can retrieve information and answer questions. And we've covered a lot of that today with our data and knowledge tooling so far. It's also about agents that can accomplish tasks, work towards an outcome, and do so autonomously. And the last part is really, really key. And that's why I'm really, really excited that we're introducing a new fleet of built-in agents, managed agents in Copilot Studio. And then I'm going to show you how we're actually going to go build one of these managed agents, these data agents built on Dataverse. But I'm first going to show you the new document processing agent that is live today in preview. And then we're going to talk about this important pattern that we see going forward. I'm going to play the video, and hopefully the sound plays.
Hello, everyone. In this demo, I will present the document processing agent in Copilot Studio. This is an out-of-the-box solution designed to automate and optimize document handling by extracting valuable information, and it relies on GPT. No model training is needed. If you want this feature as part of your workflows, you don't need to start from scratch. All you need to do is install the agent and configure it through an intuitive wizard. The wizard helps you configure the agent by uploading a sample document. Behind the scenes, The prompt will classify the document and display the fields with their values. The maker can unselect the fields that do not need to be extracted. They can also edit the prompt by clicking Advanced as they wish. The validation rules are the business rules against which the extraction by prompt will be checked. They can add more rules or use the default ones. The next step is assigning a reviewer to validate the extracted data when needed. This reviewer will be notified when a document requires their attention. The last step is selecting the document source, as the agent will be triggered upon this event. When the configuration is finished, the agent is ready to be used autonomously. The data from received documents will be automatically exported to the Dataverse table created by the agent. By clicking Complete, we'll navigate to the Agent Overview page, where we can see the monitoring station and a link to return to the wizard if needed. The agent comes with all the actions, flows, and instructions needed to complete end-to-end document processing, which will help reduce time to value from weeks to hours. Let's test the agent by sending an email with the document attachment. The maker can monitor the process on the Canvas app that comes with the agent solution. When a new document is received, it will appear on the app with the status new, and the status will change through the steps. If a document requires human validation based on the results of the validation rule check, the assigned reviewer will receive a notification to review the document and the extraction. The reviewer will see the reason why their validation is needed and can focus on it. For example, if the date must be in a different format, the reviewer can change it and then approve. The document status has changed to validated, and the next step is export. Now, let's check the table to see if the data has been extracted. And yes, the maker can add another table or use the extracted data in JSON format in any other flow to input it into a different target system. Thank you for watching.
So what you saw there was an agent that every single one of you can go to Copilot Studio today and install in your environment. And we've had autonomous agents available in the market now for a while. And the most common trigger for autonomous agents built in Copilot Studio is email. And what comes along with that email is a bunch of context, attachments. One of the most common business processes for information work today is triggered from email. And a lot of companies are even running their whole businesses on email. And so this is just, think of this as the scaffolding of the beginning of a team of agents that you can build. It has a trigger based off of an email or, for example, a document that is added to SharePoint. There's built-in actions to go process that information. We're going to go into that, and I'm going to show you how you can build those in a second, and store that information into Dataverse. And a very powerful thing this pattern does is it uses Dataverse essentially as a dynamic programming. It's the state machine for the process. And it actually triggers multiple different phases and uses Dataverse to kind of track the status of this business process. And because Dataverse is a backend for just built-in Power Apps, or as you've seen, Model Context Protocol, and really enables any type of AI interface, you can have humans interacting with the process over time while agents are working on it behind the scenes. And part of what powered the actions that you saw in that demo, so there was a couple different things that it used actually these models as powerful functions. It actually extracted information from the incoming document. It validated it. Then it wrote it into Dataverse underneath the covers. And it did that, and we built that using one of the most powerful ways of building custom AI actions within Copilot Studio today, and that's Prompt Builder, which is the way of turning these large language models into powerful tools for the agents to use in very, very powerful ways. And so, last part of our HR demo. I guess I'm going to ask the obligatory question. Can you see? Almost? All right. Fantastic. OK. All right. Fast forward in time a little bit more. So we've created those new postings in the West region. We're tracking all this HR process in a combination of Dataverse and Databricks underneath the covers. now we want to actually use an agent built within Copilot Studio to help us hire on those agents. And this agent was built using that template of document processing agent. So it's triggered when an email comes in. Actually, when resumes are submitted from a candidate, it writes those into the aptly named candidate table. But we're going to do more to that process because there's some other tools that we're going to have available here. So we'll start off with just querying what we have today. So because it's actually been processing some data so far, so I have obligatory F5 here and reloading. All right. Let's try that again. So what I love about Copilot Studio is every autonomous agent is also a conversational agent. And so as I'm building my autonomous agent here, I also can ask it, OK, show me those candidates with skills in AI ML. So this was, if you recall, we created some postings around AI and ML agents, AI ML postings. And so because I have those candidates already being processed, I'm in the shoes of a recruiter here, or someone who's helping do the filling of these postings, and I'm able to see, OK, so they're based off of some of the candidates that have already submitted their resumes through the email mailbox. Looks like Kate has some ML knowledge. OK, yep. So she's actually even led a team before, so that's great. So now I don't want just to do this, but let's say that we want to move forward with interviewing her. And so I have those interviewers tracked within Dataverse as well. And that same Dataverse MCP server that we used in GitHub Copilot to set up our business process, that same Dataverse MCP server that we used in Claude to do basically an analysis of all of our end-to-end business process, I've also added here to Copilot Studio. And it's able to, just like it did in those other clients, Copilot Studio speaks MCP. And it's built natively with Dataverse, so it's able to pull that interview information, that interviewer information, directly from Dataverse. And luckily, Massimo is right here in the audience. Raise your hand, Massimo, for everyone. He helped build all this. I'm sorry, Massimo, but I'm not going to choose you in my demo here. I'm going to have to choose Anurag. But first thing that I'm going to do here is let's say that we want to actually set up an interview for Kate with one of Anurag or Massimo. What I've also done here is I've deployed some AI prompts into the same environment to do things like generate sample interview questions. And so using the same Dataverse MCP server, which exposes those prompts, it can generate those sample interview questions based on all the context that I have. So that job posting, Kate's resume, it's able to generate those interview questions for me. But what if I wanted to do more? So what if I wanted to, I promised that we would show the building of a custom tool. And I think you saw a little bit of this in the keynote, but you really start to see how much rich tooling is available to you to build your agents within Copilot Studio. And the MCP servers are just one of them, but you can also build custom tools. And so that basically evaluation and generating of the interview questions, that was this prompt here. But I'm going to show you how you can also add your own custom tools as well. And one of those is an AI prompt. And it's very, very small here because of the resolution, so bear with me. And AI prompts, very simply, they turn an LLM into a powerful function and tool for your agent. And what I want to do here is, let's say that I want to create a prompt that essentially evaluates if a candidate is a good fit for, and of course, I clicked the bat button. I want to create a tool that evaluates if a candidate is a good fit for this position. So based off of the job requirements or the skills, like are they a good fit? And I'm not a good prompt engineer, but what I can do is I can ask Copilot to help me write a prompt. By the way, this is the thing you should always do. You should ask LLM to write all of your prompts for you. Don't just believe me, try it yourself. And so I'm going to have it write the instructions for this function that I'm going to give to the agent. And it does so really, really quickly. So basically, it created a bunch of instructions. It follows best practices by saying, like, hey, here's the output format you want. provides a recommendation, and then it passes in the sample information. Okay, great. So it's going to use resume and the job details to generate this. And this is what's so awesome about Copilot Studio is Copilot Studio is model agnostic. It is about building your agents, solving your business problems, and it brings all of the power of Foundry models and our own managed models that you don't have to go set up and manage the GPUs for to your fingertips. And so I can leverage xAI's latest new model from Grok, or I can leverage GPT-4.1, which we're actually going to bring to managed models very soon. So let's test this. So actually, it generated this as a text, but I'm actually going to, this just shows you that you can build prompts that support multimodality as well. So I can say, I actually want to pass in my resume as a document or an image. So this is my resume here. Okay, that's great. And it automatically switched me to models that support multimodality. So Grok doesn't support that. DeepSeek doesn't. It's a reasoning model. But I can use GPT-4.1. And I'm also going to leverage, I'm going to pass in one of the job posting details. Oops. Job details. So this is one of the job postings that we created earlier. And I'm going to test this. And this is going to basically take in that resume, process all the information from it, take that job details context. It's going to use GPT-4.1, host it in Azure AI Foundry, and come up with the decision that, did she meet it? Nope, she did not meet the bar. Right? I guess we clap for failure. Yes, she was correct. She was accurately screened in this case. That's awesome. Right? And you can quickly add this to an agent, and then you think of it, you're arming it with these different tools. You're using these models to power the agents that are built on these models, and it's a really, really powerful way. And it's a great way for you to start building custom functionality into your application. So I'm going to continue down this. Let's say that she was qualified. So I lied earlier. Let's say that we do want to move forward, and we want to actually set up an interview. So we want to schedule a meeting, not with Massimo, but with Anurag. And I didn't just add the Dataverse MCP server to this agent. I also added an MCP server built on another one of our Power Platform connectors, which is our Outlook connector. And so I can ask it, using the same MCP server for Outlook, to schedule a meeting. And if I go into my calendar, there you go. It was able to create an interview event in my calendar and passed in all the context of this conversation so far. But that's not all. I can also keep asking follow-up questions and scrolling down because my clipboard here is very long. Let's say that we interview her, and then we want to actually roll out an offer. We also have a new set of third-party MCP servers like DocuSign out there. And I can ask DocuSign to go and create an NDA contract. That'll be james.olenek, test, Copilot Studio, Microsoft.com. And I can have it go and create just a new contract for Kate, create an NDA contract for the offer that we want to roll out to Kate in this case. And this uses the DocuSign MCP server that creates that contract. And then if it works, it should send me an email here with a new contract for Kate right here. And then I can extend that offer to her. And you also can add your own custom endpoints as MCP servers as well. So one of the things we've been doing is we've been partnering with the Latera team, who is building a bunch of great capabilities around building an enterprise relationship graph around all the different contacts here within our hiring process and in our company. And so you can also bring your own custom endpoints as MCP servers as well. And we're able to ask questions, say like if Kate's about to onboard, I'm able to say like, hey, who else across our company knows who Kate is, and so can even help facilitate the next level of the onboarding process. So there's all of these different, yes, please, that's also awesome. But wait, there's more. I have this hiring agent, and it's not just autonomous. I can't just use it within Copilot Studio. But every Copilot Studio agent can also be published to be used within Microsoft Copilot. So that same powerful agent that's powered by MCP, powered by Dataverse, powered by all these custom AI actions, you can interact with it through Microsoft Copilot as well. While that agent is also being triggered autonomously behind the scenes, it really brings the ability to leverage all different parts of our ecosystem, all different powerful pieces of our platform together. And you can see that same first prompt that I had earlier is also also showing up here for me to interact with it through Copilot. So, just to recap. Oops, and obligatory, do you see it? All right, cool. Everything we talked about are connectors that power this common knowledge graph for Dataverse, the Dataverse MCP server that exposes that data, that knowledge, those custom actions you can build in Prompt Builder. It's all integrated natively within Copilot Studio. And you can use this to build extremely powerful business agents for your process that you can then interact with through Microsoft Copilot. And the last plug that I'll make before I'll hand it back to Nirav, and I've probably taken up too much time already, is what you saw me show earlier around building prompts using turning these large language models into powerful AI actions. We're also in the process of rolling out in preview code generation capability within Copilot Studio. And you're going to see the ability to enable code interpreter for your agents and code generation for your AI prompts, which allows you to leverage code generation behind the scenes and the secure execution of Dataverse to power much, much more powerful AI actions that can generate charts, create content, and write data in more powerful ways than ever before. So thank you for letting me demo for you today. I'm going to hand it back to Nirav.
Awesome. Thank you, James. And what an amazing collection of capabilities that really enables you to build enterprise-grade agents for your business processes. No offense to Massimo or Anurag, but I think, James, you got the job. So you're hired. But I'm sure you're all wondering now, this is amazing. I'm ready to go. But how do I secure and scale my investment here? How do I make sure I can really operationalize this across my organization? And lucky for you, we've got a solution for that. We've been investing across the Power Platform for years, building out managed platform capabilities so that you can fundamentally operate at scale the investments that you make in Dataverse, in Power Apps, and in Copilot Studio. And all of those have come along for the ride here. With things like managed security, you can go ahead and trust that your data and the operations operating on top of that data are fully secure. With things like VNet connectivity, so that you can connect to your data over a private network, so you don't have to open up your precious data and resources to the public internet. You can go ahead and do that. With data labeling, like what you saw this morning, you can know and trust that your data is going to get classified and exposed to those end users interacting with those agents so that they can understand the confidentiality, say that 3 times fast at 5 p.m., of your data and how that's going to get manifested through those agent ecosystems. And a plethora of other capabilities there for security as well. When it comes to governance, being able to cost control and really set allocations for how you want to operate your agents and control and charge back the utilization of your agents across your environments, all possible through our governance capabilities. Visibility into how you can scale and manage all of those agents, who's using what, how they're being utilized, all part of the governance capabilities that we have inside of Copilot Studio and the Power Platform. And last but not least, our operational capabilities with full application lifecycle management. So you can package all of your solutions, package those capabilities that you just saw James build CI/CD pipelines around it, and deploy them with scale and trust across your organization. We have so many capabilities across the platform in the managed capabilities that we provide that there's no way I can cover them all today after all the amazing demos that we just did. But luckily for you, we've got another session that's going to deep dive into all of these. So for those of you that are interested in understanding how you can manage and scale your investment, go ahead and join Sean Nandy tomorrow as part of the Enhancing Agent Management Controls for AI-ready enterprises tomorrow at 2 p.m. Here in the same exact room at 2 p.m. And he's going to walk you through the end-to-end set of capabilities that we have that can support you on this journey. And so I think we've walked through a lot of different capabilities today. And the reality is, Copilot Studio is a great place to get started building those agents. But we also recognize that there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into building agents that can operate your business processes at scale and for your mission-critical workloads. Whether it's the compute infrastructure that you need, the memory and knowledge, and how that facilitates that deep reasoning that James walked you through earlier, the models and how you can extend using those cutting-edge capabilities that AI provides all the way through the management capabilities. There's a plethora of infrastructure and tools that you can leverage to do this. But the big thing that we've tried to do with Dataverse is simplify all of that for you. Take a lot of that scaffolding and building block that you have to integrate yourself and make that part of the core system so that you can spend more time really transforming those business processes and spending less time scaffolding up and managing a bunch of infrastructure. And so hopefully that's what you saw through the different demos that James showed today, the ability to really get started and operate and transform all of those business processes really quickly and easily to start driving value across your organization today inside of Copilot Studio. And so as a quick wrap up and call to action, for those of you that are looking to transform all of that data across your organization into knowledge inside of Copilot Studio, go ahead and sign up for the enhanced SDK that James talked about earlier. We'd love to see you participate and show us the different types of scenarios that you're bringing as knowledge inside of Copilot Studio and how you're utilizing those to transform those business processes as you build out your agents. And for those of you that want to go through and really experience the hands-on, a lot of what James showed, we've got a QR code here for the learning track that will walk you through that end-to-end experience, really get hands-on, experiment, and leverage a lot of these tools and capabilities that we just walked you through so that you can really start seeing and experience what it looks like to build out these agents, leveraging the power of Copilot Studio and Dataverse behind the scenes. And there's plenty more content across the infrastructure that we built out inside of Dataverse. For those of you that want to double-click into any of the capabilities that we talked about today, there's a number of on-demand sessions available to you online that you can go watch, and we'll deep dive into each and every one of those capabilities that you just saw there. So give everyone a second to snap a photo here so you can get those. But with that, we've got a few minutes left. Happy to take questions. James is going to rejoin me here for anything that you may have. For those of you that are on your way, thank you for joining and enjoy the rest of the build.